Hello there, this is Dana Arcuri, author, speaker, advocate, and survivor. Today's topic is about the toxic siblings who discard you, the scapegoat, and the black sheep of the family. And oftentimes we don't even know that it's happening. So I'm going to share my story. Remember, this is just a personal experience. You may have had a different encounter with your toxic siblings. But for me, it was a situation where when I really go back even 10 years, I did not realize that I was being discarded. So it's something that's extremely subtle. It's not something we see right away. It could go on for many, many years. Sometimes for people, it could be a lifetime where they are being manipulated. There's a lot of gaslighting, smear campaigns, retaliation, a lot of triangulation and the different relationships within the toxic family. And we don't see right away what is happening, especially when it's behind closed doors. And there's a lot of reasons why. And so let's get into the deeper facts involving this. So the one thing is that at one point, the fog will lift. We will eventually wake up and see the light. We'll suddenly understand, yes, we are being discarded. Yes, the toxic siblings are not including us in anything within the family. Instead, they are not including us. They're making sure that we're not part of the talks and the plans and anything going on, even with our parents. So we're in the dark. We don't know a lot of what happens because they purposefully and intentionally will not include us in anything involving this dysfunctional family. The number one reason why this is going on is because it's another way for them to hurt us. So they're very jealous and envious of the scapegoats, and they will find ways, sly, covert methods to hurt us. And one big way is to, number one, not let us know what's really happening, keep us confused, do a lot of manipulating and hiding and deception behind the scenes, and we're not even aware. So oftentimes this is happening, and eventually, just like that, we suddenly see the light, we understand what's happening, and by then it's too late. Typically, when we realize that the toxic siblings discarded us, it's already a done deal. And so it's like, now that we're no contact and now we have this big distance between us. So for an example, for me, it's been well over a year, it might be a year and a half at this point, that we've been no contact. So I see things now in a new perspective. There's a lot of things coming up to the surface, and now I'm really understanding what has happened. And so I'll share a few pointers, because if you're not sure if your toxic siblings discarded you, this may help you to see a little more clear, to have some better focus, maybe to come up with a new game plan and wisdom to advocate for your own self and to create healthier boundaries and perhaps even go no contact with your toxic siblings. Okay, so let's go on. Okay, so for years, behind closed doors, there's a lot of manipulation, triangulation. There are a lot of covert attacks happening. The sisters and the brothers are ganging up on the scapegoat. They are doing a lot of gossiping, spreading rumors, creating outright malicious lies about the scapegoat. And the reason was, and the reason still will always be, because they're so envious, they're so jealous. Perhaps at one time, the scapegoat used to be a favorite of the narcissistic parent. I mean, I look back and I can say for 40 some years of my life, I was very, very close with my mother. My siblings were extremely jealous about it. They made certain to let me know that they thought negative things about me. They couldn't stand that my mother did more for me, little favors for me that she didn't do for them, and it rubbed them the wrong way. So they were outright envious, and they wanted to find ways to destroy my relationship with my mother, which they did. That's what triangulation is all about. So for all of these years, they've been putting my mother and I in an awkward position where they would talk really maliciously about her to me, and then turn around and to my mother talk really terrible about me and say horrible things and spread rumors about me to my mother. And so there was this division, and there was this triangulation that was happening even with my father. So for the one sister who was the closest with my father, she wanted to make sure, make certain my dad and I would never, ever be close. So she used triangulation for 50 plus years of my life and made it very clear that she was daddy's favorite and I wasn't. And because this was just part of the dysfunction in the family, a lot of people in the family and relatives just kept quiet. You may know what's going on, you may see some things, but oftentimes it's silent. Nobody's talking, nobody's sharing, and there's a big fat elephant in the room. It's just crazy happenings. Again, the whole three-ring circus, and when the flying monkeys come out, oh hell, all hell will break loose. You could guarantee that one. So they'll purposefully not include you in anything. So what happens is it might be subtle, might be very subtle in the beginning. So in the beginning, it might be that they invite everybody else to their little gathering, their little function, or their little camping adventures in their RV. They'll make up excuses. Well, she doesn't have an RV. They'll make up an excuse. It could be any excuse under the sun, but remember, an excuse is still an excuse. And what they'll do is they'll make it common practice to not include you. There will be things that will happen that could be quite serious. Say, here's an example. Your father could end up in the hospital and he's very sick. They don't tell you. So the scapegoat doesn't know that their own father is in the hospital. And then maybe something happens and the mother ends up in a very bad injury. Maybe she had a fall and something really terrible and tragic occurred. Siblings won't tell you. They'll keep the scapegoat out of the loop intentionally because they don't want him or her to know anything about it. This is another way, again, to stab the scapegoat in the back. And it's the toxic sibling's way of saying, I'm going to punish you because I hate you so bad because you used to be this one's favorite or that one's favorite, or because you're different, or because you're not like us. I am going to punish you so bad. And they do. Repeatedly, they will punish you in very clever ways. Next, we have to understand that, while it's subtle in the beginning, it will suddenly become more of a norm. So something that may have seemed abnormal. So for example, maybe 10 years ago, it was abnormal that they didn't involve me in something going on in the family. Maybe say there's a birthday or a family gathering. They typically back then, 10 years ago, would tell me about it. They'd ask me my opinion. Hey, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Here's my idea. What's your idea? And they were more open to listening to me and valuing my thoughts and opinions. But what happened was around, say 2015, getting into 2018, they discluded me. I was the odd one out. I was the one who, it was like, shh, don't tell her what's going on. So if there was an accident, if there was someone in the hospital, if there was a death in the family, if there was something that came down and it was definitely a family matter, and it might even been of something of urgency. I mean, we're talking days and weeks, months could go by and nobody told me, nobody informed me. It is extremely horrifying when you find out that your father passed away and nobody told you. That was last year's unbelievable moment to find out from a stranger after the fact that my father passed away. Nobody told me, say a month before that, hey, he's not well, if you want to say your last goodbyes, now's the time. No, nobody told me. After he passed away, nobody informed me. When there was a memorial, nobody gave me information on the location, the time, the day, the place, and what the plans were. They purposefully, intentionally did not want me there. They made certain I didn't know. And so I didn't get to say goodbye to my father. I did not get to go to the memorial. This is how toxic siblings will stab you in the back. And they love creating pain and more trauma for the scapegoats. We have to understand now, someone who is in a sound mind, who's a healthy individual, would never, ever do this to anyone, especially a loved one. So for someone to do this to a blood relative, we have to understand that this is like now borderline sociopath. Very, very, very psychologically damaging and unstable. Okay, next is that several years ago, we can even go back to like 2016, 2017, there were a lot of times when my siblings stopped including me on the plans for, say, my mother's birthday party, say another sibling's celebration for whatever. There was something going on. There was a celebration happening. Nobody called me. Nobody asked me my opinion. Nobody even thought for a second to pick up the phone or send me a text message and ask me, hey, are you available at this time, at this date, at this place to celebrate this occasion? No, they didn't tell me. And so what happened was I'd find out, okay, so here we go. I found out that the one celebration for the one sibling's 60th birthday party was candle making. Okay, so I used to love candles. I used to really love candles. But what happened was after my whole benzo nightmare, I became sensitive to everything under the sun. Suddenly, all these things changed within my own body, and I couldn't have gluten, so I had to become 100% gluten-free. All these aromas bothered me. I could not wear fragrance. I used to love perfume so much, loved it, had many, many bottles of wonderful perfume, high-end perfume. Couldn't use it anymore, couldn't be around candles, any aromas whatsoever. I would immediately end up in a severe, debilitating migraine. Now, I'm not talking a migraine like, oh, it's just a little headache, no big deal, take, some Tylenol and you'll be fine. No, I'm talking debilitating, bedridden, horrific, throbbing, aching pain in my temples, my forehead, the back of my head, to the point where I'd be vomiting, I'd pass out, I'd be dizzy, I had vertigo, the room was spinning around in circles, and I was down for the count for days. And so when the sibling decided to finally tell me what everybody else planned, number one, you find out that everybody else made these plans without you. You find out they don't give a shit about your opinion. You find out they really don't care what you think. And then you find out they chose a place that they knew you couldn't go because they didn't want you there. And so I was very upfront, it sounds great for all of you, not so great for me. Why? Because A, I can't be near scented candles. I have migraines that are so disabling. This is extremely harmful to my health, and this is not something I could participate in. So I was very clear in my communication with my sibling, the golden child, and her exact words were to me, too bad, then don't go. And, that really hurts. So let's keep it real clear that when our toxic siblings don't include us in a family function or whatever's going on within the dynamics of the family and the relatives and the celebrations and holidays, and they don't include us, or they intentionally choose a location or an activity or form of entertainment that they know you will not participate in, because it might cause you some health problems or it's just a potential hazard for you. It's very loud and clear. They're doing this on purpose. They don't want you there. And instead of them just saying, I don't want you there and I'm not going to include you, they'll just choose a place that they know you can't go to. And it's basically F you. I don't care. And that's just the way it is. Now, when we ask ourselves this question, now this is a really good question, and so many of you are like still in that fog, or maybe it's finally lifting. And so you ask yourself this $1 million question. Now, why would toxic siblings discard you? Why? Because they can no longer control you. It's all about power, abuse, and control. They will silence you and silence you and silence you for decades. But eventually it will get to a point where you do wake up, you do speak up, you do stand up and advocate for yourself. You may have created very healthy boundaries. You're no longer taking the crap they hand your way. And so they don't want you anymore because they can't use you and abuse you because you caught on to their little three-ring circus. So these flying monkeys finally realize, oh crap, I guess this is not going to work anymore. So they decide to discard you and throw you out like trash because they can't control you. But what they can do, and trust me, they still do this, they can't control you, but they can control how others view you. And that's why they create the smear campaigns, the retaliation, the gaslighting, the manipulation, stalking you, mobbing you, bullying you via Facebook, Twitter, and wherever else you are on social media. They'll still find ways to create some severe psychological abuse in your life. This will go on and on. They may try to destroy you behind the scenes. This is what toxic siblings do. Next is this. For years, when this was going on, I at first didn't see it. And then I woke up and then I understood it and then I saw it. And it wasn't until I walked away from the whole craziness of a dysfunction and toxic family that I finally realized, it's been long coming. The whole discard, it was going on for a long time and I didn't see it, and we can't blame ourselves because typically people who are the scapegoats or the black sheep of the family, we are empaths, we are highly sensitive people. We would never treat anyone like that. That's not in our nature. So our nature is to be compassionate. It's to be a truth seeker, and it is to keep harmony within a family. Typically, we're the ones who are the peacemakers. That's why for so long we kept the peace until we realized it's not saving us. It's not helping us. We can never, ever recover as long as we're quiet and we permit them to continue abusing us, stalking us, and bullying us. Healing can't come forth during this continual cycle of abuse. Next, we have to understand that when we do catch them in the discard. So there are times we will see, for example, when they didn't invite me to certain family functions and I found out. How did I find out? So here I am concerned because my mother's light bulbs don't work in her lamp and she's in the dark, and me being the concerned peacemaker of the family really want to find a way to help her. So I call her on the phone on one Sunday and I'm asking, did you get yourself a new lamp? Do you want me to go shopping? Do you want me to buy you new lamps? She was saying at first it was a light bulb problem. Then she's saying, no, the lamp just doesn't work anymore. So I had a lot of concern. I didn't want my aging mother sitting alone in the dark. Long story short, I call her on the phone and just say, hey, why don't we go shopping? I'll buy you new lamps. And she says no. Well, then we start talking. One thing leads to another. Hey, what are you up to? Oh, I just got home. Oh, well, where were you? Oh, I was out celebrating such and such sister's birthday. Think about that. She purposefully tells me that she went with my other siblings out to dinner to celebrate the one birthday celebration. Didn't even invite me. Didn't tell me, and just decided now to tell me after the fact. That's rubbing it in my face. That is malicious. That is abusive. And it wasn't like that was the icing on the cake. Really, I can't say that it's like one thing or two things that led to going full no contact with all my siblings and my mother. Instead, it's 100 things. It's 50 plus years of abuse after abuse, gossip, retaliation, triangulation, manipulation, deception, bullying, betrayal, sexual assaults, and a big fat elephant in the room, especially during certain holidays in which everyone pretended that everything's fine when it was not fine. Because it's not okay that a narcissist abuses her kids. It's not okay that toxic siblings betray the scapegoat. We have to understand that we reach this place where we do have enough courage. We muster up the courage to say no more. And so the last straw is that there's so many signs, and it's been going on for so many years, you can't unsee what you've seen. And when it repeatedly, you understand that you're not being invited, you're not being included, they're purposefully not inviting you. They're purposely avoiding you. They're no longer calling you. They're no longer talking to you. They only pick up the phone or text you when they want something. So here's the other example. I hadn't heard from my siblings for a really long time. Now, this is going back into 2018 at the very end of the year. Hadn't heard from them in a long time when out of the blue, the one sibling calls to say, oh, I need you to pitch in money because this relative passed away. So you don't want anything to do with me, and I don't hear from you for like 6 months, and suddenly you decide that you want me to cough up some cash to give to you? And how can I even be certain that you're going to use my money for that particular reason that you're stating? How do I know that you're really not just going to take my money and use it for something else? Because, the bottom line is, we cannot trust toxic siblings. Because we have experienced years of abuse, of being bullied and harassed and pushed around. Remember, some of us have been physically abused by our siblings or by the narcissistic parent. Many of us have experienced severe trauma, PTSD, depression, anxiety, and a lot of lingering effects. It is the aftermath of trauma. We must understand that this is psychological abuse. It is extremely damaging, and it will impact the rest of our lives. Next is that while it could cut like a knife, that we were discarded, and we could understand, they didn't want anything to do with us. In a way, we could also consider it's a blessing in disguise. That I could look back and I could say, I would rather be alone than have to be in a crowd of people who are my blood relatives, who treat me more like an enemy than a relative. That whole thing, blood isn't thicker than water. It's true. Just because someone is our mother, just because someone's our sister, just because someone's our brother, does not mean that we have to remain in contact with them, especially when the relationship is extremely unhealthy for us and could cause us great harm. Next is that we reach a place where we will stop explaining ourselves. We will stop defending ourselves. It is far healthier for us to simply cut the ties, to walk away, to rebuild our lives, to no longer care about people who don't care about us, who don't value us, who don't love us. That when it all comes down to it, we learn to rescue ourselves. Part of healing is loving yourself and caring about yourself enough to have the empowerment to take care of you, to take care of your soul, to take care of your body and your mind and your future, because this is our destiny, to live a life of passionate purpose, to be a productive person in society, and to live out our dreams. There is so much greatness in each of us. We are worthy, we are valuable, and regardless that the toxic siblings can disagree, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we know who we are. We are brave, we are strong. We are the ones who woke up and walked away, and we today are living a life that matters. And if you yourself have dealt with being discarded by your toxic siblings, or even perhaps your narcissistic parents, please share your story with me. Feel free to share what's going on in your life with your siblings. how you are dealing with it, how you are healing. And you could visit me at danaarcuri.com. Thanks and have an awesome day.